What's up, everybody? It's Darkstrider, the YouTube assassin, and my mind is still reeling from the effects of like yesterday's video. Just to recap, I came back from vacation and I'm trying to answer all my comments and messages and everything. And as I'm looking through, I'm seeing that a lot of you, not just a small few, a lot of you are starting to blame the dumpster fire that a lot of the community feels is Assassin's Creed Odyssey. A lot of you guys are blaming Origins. You feel that Origins was the origin of the nonsense that you feel is going on in Odyssey. And I'm blown away. So in yesterday's video, I wanted to know, what exactly is it that is turning you off or you know, making you say that or getting you angry? Because there are people that even refuse to play Assassin's Creed Origins because they don't believe that it's anywhere near a proper Assassin's Creed game. So I looked into it, I looked through a lot of your comments and everything, and I got a lot of great feedback both for and against Assassin's Creed Origins. Now, the way I feel, first of all, I'm not going to stop saying this, you know, and I'm not going to change my mind. I've told everyone that I will be playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Okay? It's an Assassin's Creed game. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to let you all know what's going on. And, you know, I'm going to be pretty objective. I'm not going to say it's a great game and then, you know, out of nowhere, it's really a Star Wars Battlefront 2. You know, I'm going to look through this game and I'm going to let you know. And you're going to see me play it, and if you believe that it's a bad game, then, you know, by all means, you're going to have the proof. I see you. But the thing is that I wanted to know, like, why Origins? Why was Origins on that list? And in my opinion, Origins is actually a really good game. Yes, it is an action game with RPG elements in it. And yes, you do go around and you do level up and you do all these things just like an RPG, but for the most part it's an action game. You do a lot of action, you know, like you need a technique when you're fighting and stuff like that. That's what happens with this game. It's not just, you know, like a you know, turn-based action or anything like that. You're fighting in real time. So it's just weird that, like, you know, you would think that this had way too much RPG elements as opposed to other games in the series. And, you know, like, as I went along, as I'm looking through, some people feel that, hey, you know, a lot of the old elements are gone from the original Assassin's Creed games. You know, like social stealth. You can't just go and hide anymore. You have to either fight or run away. You know, you don't get to like hide in crowds. You don't get to do anything like that. And I understand that. Other people feel that this opened the doors for the RPG elements because you actually have to go and level up. You can go, you know, anywhere you want in the game after you complete Siwa, which is basically like a tutorial. All right, you can go across the entire map right after you complete the little Siwa area. And then, you know, the map is huge. You can roam around. But one of the problems is that each zone, it has specific levels that are suggested that you be in order to, like, survive in those areas. If you're a level 5 and you go to a level 40 area, chances are you're going to die every 3 seconds. All right? So yeah, I guess to some people that's a turnoff. Some people just want, you know, their game. They want to go through and they want to do their thing. And that's it. Which, you know, you can actually do that. You can actually play this game, and if you just do the mission constraints, no side missions or anything, you can do the game in about, you know, 6 to 8 hours. So, you know, like, you could still play it the way you played a regular Assassin's Creed game. But some people don't really go in for, like, all the other options and extras that the game had. However, all those options and extras actually prolong the length of the game and the replayability of the game. You know, you're playing through And, you know, you could choose to do this side mission. You could choose not to do the side mission. You could choose to buy this ability point. You could choose to buy all the ability points. It's what you make of it. Now, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I mean, they went all in on that, and it's basically an RPG game. So that's what a lot of people have a problem with. They want an action game, not an RPG game. They're feeling that it's becoming a Witcher clone or anything like that. And I'm telling you right now, in every single series, every game has evolved. If they're in a series, they've evolved, and that has continued their continued success. Okay? Look at just Super Mario Brothers for the Nintendo. That game actually evolved, not just across the different technologies and the different generations. It evolved across you know, just different play styles. Okay, it's always been a 2D game, a 2D platformer, Super Mario Brothers. And what did it evolve to? Now we're at Super Mario Odyssey, which is odd that they have an Odyssey as well. But they're at Super Mario Odyssey, and you could, you know, like run, jump, leap, collect stars. You're in a 3D environment. You know, you still have your enemies, and you can still stomp on them and shoot them with fire flowers and all that nonsense. You know, you still have all those elements, but besides having all those elements, you also have, you know, all the newfangled technology that you had. You could do butt stomps. You could, you know, like change your clothes. You know, Mario could look like he did from, you know, from the Mario Maker, or he could look like the traditional Mario, or he could look like what do you call it? He could look like a sailor. He could look like a race car driver. He could look like a skeleton. They changed all that around. You know, you could do so many different things in that game, and it doesn't detract from the game because it is the same game at heart. Now, games, like I said, they do really well when they evolve, and as long as they don't completely change direction. All right? And I already know some of you are going to throw out there, well, what about Call of Duty? It's the same exact game every single time. Well, you know what? People that play Call of Duty, they're a special case. Those are diehard fans mostly that play Call of Duty. You cannot be a casual. Well, you can be a casual and jump into a Call of Duty game. But chances are you're probably not going to have as much fun as like a diehard Call of Duty fan. Because they get into that game. They know all the tricks. They study the maps. They know what they're doing. And, you know, it gets pretty intense. And if you're a casual, unless you're playing with a bunch of casual friends, you know, you're going to find it kind of hard. You know, the campaign is always different. The campaign always goes to different areas. But, you know, if you're going to play on the multiplayer, trust me, you better study the maps. You better do everything that those hardcore gamers do, because they are fantastic. They are fantastic. And not to say that, you know, right away you're going to suck and everything like that, because, you know, I mean, you're a noob if you're just starting on the Call of Duty games. But those guys that play that, they get into it. They get deep into it. So, you know, for them to see a new Call of Duty game, new weapons, new areas, new maps and everything like that, I mean, that's what they like. It's consistent. They enjoy it, and that's fine. But for the most part, you see every other game and on every other system, and it will always evolve. Okay? You know, I mean, I don't care what you name me. The Legend of Zelda, Doom, you know, BioShock, all those games, they have similar elements, but they will always evolve. They always go above and beyond. And like I said, change needs to happen, but change should not be a complete departure from where you were originally. Now, Assassin's Creed and Assassin's Creed 2 were pretty much similar. But the thing is that in Assassin's Creed 2, we had some changes. We obviously had things that were the same, like, you know, the whole assassin theme, wearing the hood, fighting the Templars, things of that nature, seeking the Apple of Eden, seeking of pieces of Eden. Okay? But in Assassin's Creed 2, We were introduced to things like the dual blade. We were introduced to your weapon wheel. All right, you were able to change the weapons that you wanted. We were introduced to other add-ons to the hidden blade. You know, you had hidden guns, you had poison. You know, you were able to poison people. Throwing darts was always the same. Smoke bombs were new. Throwing money was new. Even making money was actually new. Okay? They kept swords and everything, but you were able to change your armor. You were able to buy your armor and, you know, change it whenever you wanted to. You just had to come to Monterione and you had to just pick out which sword you wanted to use and then, you know, which armor you wanted to use. So, you know, obviously some of the armors were better than others and you wanted to stay with that. You know, it also introduced us to collectibles. It introduced us to the codex. You know, gave us a little more history on what happened with Altair. All right. It also introduced us to a money system where we would have to improve the town in order to attract people, so those people would spend money there, and then we were able to buy, you know, things once we had enough money saved up. And, you know, it really presented a challenge. So in this way, I think this is why a lot of people have such fond memories of Assassin's Creed 2, because if it were not for 2, we wouldn't have some of the systems that we have now, which were only seen in Part 2. Now, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood actually gave us a little more time with Ezio. We actually had a smaller map. All right, the map was not that big. We were confined basically just to one part of the world. You had just this one map and you crossed it here and there, dealing with things as you went along. Some parts were closed off until you completed certain restraints, and then you could open everything else up. But, you know, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood was a little more of the same. We had our weapon wheel again. We had our dual blade, our, you know, pistol. We had poison. We had the smoke bombs again. This time, however, we got a couple of other things. We got throwing daggers. You were able to, you know, have your sword or whatever, your hammer. But we also got a crossbow, which was, you know, kind of like new, you know. On top of that, also new was the fact that you could go out and recruit assassins, okay? You could recruit assassins, bring them into the fold, and then use them to your advantage. You could send them on missions and obtain more money. You know, that was another resource of income besides actually purchasing items all around the town and the city. You could actually buy all these like shops and everything like that, and that's how you got your income. You could also buy landmarks. That was another way you got your income. But, you know, one of the big things, the big attractions was that you can go to any pigeon coop and you could just have your assassins go and attack. Or you could be in the middle of a fight here and you could call your assassins. Just like that. And they'll just come out. Those are your recruits attacking. So it was kind of cool. It was kind of innovative that we had something like that. You know, it really, you know, it was more of the same, but there were slight changes that actually made it more fun. And it was a lot of fun for the time. Revelations was where we said goodbye to Ezio. The withered and old master assassin, he goes looking for a vault of Altair. And it was actually kind of cool that we got to see the last days of Altair as well, giving us a closing to both Ezio and Altair stories. It was actually really cool. And of course, along the way, Ezio ends up fighting Templars and doing all kinds of stuff. You know, they continued the path where we've got recruits. We have, the stealthy assassinations. The hidden blade is actually pretty cool because now it's like a hooked blade, and you could slide down, zip lines and everything like that, which was pretty cool. It also gave us the option to, create our own bombs. You could find recipes for smoke bombs, for blood bombs, all kinds of weird bombs, and you could use that. And it was actually pretty cool. You know, these were things that were kind of amazing at the time. You know, you still had a very small map. Um, you know, it really wasn't a huge map. I mean, you know, like you could clear all this area out and stuff, but it wasn't a massive map. And I mean, that's okay. You know, you still had fun going around. You still went and bought different areas and stuff. And we're back in the homeland of Altair. So it was just cool to like see how the culture had changed from Altair's time to Ezio's time. And of course, you know, we saw Ezio's final days. We saw how, you know, the bloodline continued. We see Ezio get married. We see his children and everything. And, you know, it was a pretty cool way of ending the sequel. And I think that the whole reason so many people were into Ezio and this trilogy was the fact that it opened up a lot of new doors. It gave us a lot of changes, a lot of new things that we could use and do and stuff. So I think that this is why so many people are so fond of Ezio and the entire game series where we had him. AC3 got like a ton of hate, and I think it was because it was like the last we would see of Desmond. And they really left a lot of loopholes open, but they never answered it, even in today's games. So, you know, there was just a lot, you know, people didn't like Connor, they didn't like a lot of what was going on. Even though it did have some of the same stuff. But in that game, the change was that you could do some missions by sea, which was pretty cool. By the time we got to AC4, we were dealing with nothing but the ocean, which honestly, I enjoy, like, you know, a lot of like what happens when you're sailing around and, you know, finding enemy ships and blowing them up and sending your fleet on missions and everything, taking all these, you know, like different towns and storming different fortresses that are like shooting stuff at you and whatnot. It's actually like really cool. It's pretty interesting and whatnot. But the thing is that I just felt like there was way too much to do. There were too many small islands. There were too many collectibles. You know, I'm not trying to be like IGN and yell out too much water because, you know, I mean, that's obvious. There is a lot of water. But it missed a lot of what Assassin's Creed had originally. But at the same time, it had a couple of things, you know, that like expanded the universe. You know, there was a lot of, you know, sailing. There was a lot of pirates. There was a lot of, you know, high sea adventures. You still got to run around and do all kinds of stuff. You still got all kinds of like new weapons and gear and stuff like that. We also had the ability to find treasures, go to treasure maps, go underwater. You know, crafting again made a comeback. You were able to craft outfits and things for yourself. And then, of course, there was your ship. Instead of having like a town or a base or whatever, the ship was actually the town or the base. You could upgrade the ship. You could upgrade its weaponry. You could upgrade, you know, how many extra soldiers you could hold on it and everything. So, you know, it did give us a lot of change, and a lot of people actually enjoyed Assassin's Creed 4. Some not so much, but most enjoyed. And, you know, like I'm on board with people who actually enjoyed the game. I thought it was a lot of fun. Now, Rogue, Unity, and Syndicate, those are the titles where, like, we start seeing problems. Some people felt that they were more of the same. They didn't really bring anything new to the table. And, you know, others felt that, like, the story was bland or, you know, there just wasn't enough in the game for them to be excited over. These games are also the last where we see things like social hiding and stuff like that. Like, we don't have that in Assassin's Creed Origins, okay? You know, you're able to hide in the crowd. You're able to hide, you know, you're able to jump into like a bale of hay. You're able to do things like that and just hide. In Origins, you know, that was the start where you're not able to do that. And, you know, part of it could be because it wasn't created at that time, and that's why, you know, you're not able to, like, just, you know, like, just, you know, hide amongst people who are having a conversation and act like you're having a conversation with them, or, you know, like, jump in a pile of hay and wait for the enemies to pass by. You actually have to either kill the enemy or just keep running until they no longer see you. In these games, you know, this was the last that we've actually seen of it, where you could do things like that. And some people, they make a good point where, you know, we don't have that anymore. And, you know, I could see that, you know, we don't have it, and you know, things like that were actually kind of fun. That made it, you know, an Assassin's Creed game. You're almost like a ninja. It makes sense. But, you know, like I said, you do need some change. The only thing is that you have a problem when a game or a series evolves into something that is unrecognizable. Okay, at that point, it should become a different IP. And that's what I've been saying with Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Like I said, and I'll say it again, I haven't changed my mind. I will play Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I will play it and you know, review it. I will give you tricks and tips, any glitches, anything that I could find in that game. All right, I will continue to do that because I just enjoy the series. But in some cases, the game is unrecognizable. In all the games that we've just described, they were very recognizable. They were very similar to each other. They had all of the, you know, like similar traits, but then they also brought something different to the table. So in order to like have the game series go anywhere, you do need some change. You do need some evolution, and not just in graphics. You need evolution in what you're doing. You need evolution in how the game is played. I mean, controls, if the controls work, you know, stick with them. You know, you don't have to change that. But, you know, different things that go on, you know, like looking over the landscape and everything. You know, like opening up the map, defogging the map by, you know, standing on top of the highest point and looking what you're doing. That's all like things that we're used to, and it just gives us familiarity. It just makes us feel good when we're playing the games. But other things that, you know, are different will also make us enjoy the games as much, you know, just because it brings something new to the table. It brings us, you know, something new to try out. And I like when we have a mix of the old and the new. But again, like I said, some games become unrecognizable. Enter Assassin's Creed Chronicles. Chronicles is what we know now as 3 different stories of different characters who are assassins, but were put in a 2D world. So being in a 2D world obviously is different from what we're used to. And I actually was interested in this game only because if you've ever watched Assassin's Creed Embers, it actually shows the very last days of Ezio. It even shows you Ezio's death. Okay? And during that time, he actually, you know, is approached by this assassin, this Chinese assassin, and he's given an opportunity to train her, which he does. Now, this game, as you can see, is very different. Not just the 2D element. It's very different from what we're used to in an Assassin's Creed game. You still do have the stealth. You don't have social stealth, but you still have stealth. You're, you know, earning kind of like bronze, silver, and gold for certain, you know, like surpassing certain sections and everything like that. You are able to go in and hide, you know, in certain spots and whatnot, and you are able to assassinate people as you see them. So, you know, there are some similarities, but this game was way too different. It was way too different. Look at it. You're playing an assassin you know, it's 2D, it's really tiny, you know, it's weird. It's the absolute weird thing. You're going through like all this stuff. You know, anybody, I mean, you're looking at it right now. It's strange. It's very, very strange. You know, you still have, you know, like your eagle vision and stuff like that. But for the most part, this game is so different than what we're used to in an Assassin's Creed game. So, you know, it bears the Assassin's Creed logo, it bears the Assassin's Creed name, but it's not a traditional Assassin's Creed game. Okay? What it is,
a little distraction could help
is an Assassin's Creed game, but it's a different IP. It's Chronicles. It chronicles the, you know, just the lives of certain assassins, and it has no impact on the real world or the current day world. All right? Everything that goes on here, you know, and maybe that's why they called it Chronicles, because it chronicles what happened to these specific assassins during their time, and you know, it doesn't really get into anything else. It doesn't really get into a whole bunch of like other things. I don't even recall if there was like a piece of Eden in this game. I never actually finished it, and I really should. You know, that way I could give you like a full-on assessment of what's actually going on. But, you know, this was the game. But, again, it became a different IP. And now you could even get all three Assassin's Creed Chronicles China, Chronicles Russia, and Chronicles Egypt all on like the same disc. Back in the day, I think you had to pay like $14 for each game individually. But then it got to a point where they just gave you all three, and I think it was like $30. So, you know, this change happened. I'm not going to lie to you, this really wasn't that well received. And, you know, at the same time that it really wasn't well received, you know, it was still a decent, like, you know, 2D platformer. It really was. So, you know, it has some of the music, it has some of the things. Here you go, Ezio makes an appearance. He actually, you know, you actually see training sequences where he's training her to fight. He's training her to use the sword. And it's actually kind of cool. You know, it was an interesting little montage.
Remember to look for signs your opponent is about to strike.
Of course, that wasn't Ezio's voice,
yes,
but still, it's a lot of fun.
This time when you block,
and this is supposed to be stuff that happened at the end of Assassin's Creed Embers or during the events of Assassin's Creed Embers. So, you know, again, it has some of the elements, not all of the elements, and it also, you know, even though it is an Assassin's Creed game, it bears the Assassin's Creed logo. There are some similarities because there are assassins in the game. It, at the same time, does not have actual, you know, bearing on the Assassin's Creed universe. It's just like a one-off story, like a what-if kind of, you know? Come back to Assassin's Creed Origins. And yes, there are RPG elements. Yes, there is no social, you know, like hiding and stuff like that. They don't have anything like that in this game anymore. Okay, but the social, the hiding socially, it could be that wasn't even invented yet. You know, so that could be kind of written off. You know, you still have the hidden blade. You still have, you know, the assassination techniques. And I know a lot of people will argue, oh, well, they're not even assassins because the word assassin didn't even come out until around Altair's time, because that's when, you know, they actually came up with the word assassin. Yes, I know that. I get that. You know, but at the same time, you know, you're still doing those techniques. And it's just like when I said in a previous video that the Assassin's Creed timeline was broken, and I was showing off all those other assassins. I said maybe they're spiritual ancestors, you know, because a lot of things weren't invented back then that were invented or organized in, you know, the most present time periods. or the most current time periods. So, you know, there's like, you know, a lot of pros and cons to it all. All right. But as far as I'm concerned, Assassin's Creed Origins, it is a good game. It does a good job telling the origin story of what went on and, you know, like what's going on and how they started, you know, their formation and everything. You know, they weren't called assassins. They were called the Hidden Ones at the end of the game. That's, you know, how they formed. That's what they formed under. They were the Brotherhood of the Hidden Ones. That's all they were. All right? The word assassin came later, but again, like I say, this shows the origins of what was going on. These guys, Bayek and Aya, what they started is actually, you know, what people are going to remember as the beginning, or what future assassins will remember as the beginning. All right, so, you know, that's basically how I feel about Assassin's Creed Origins. Now, yes, it does have RPG elements. Okay, it does have like a leveling system. It does have like an ability point system. It has those things, yes. And a lot of people are like, well, that doesn't make it a proper Assassin's Creed game. Well, you know what? You don't have to do all that. You don't have to level. You don't have to get every single ability point. You can play the game the way you want to play the game. There is no wrong way to play the game. If you wanted to just do the main mission constraints the same way you would do in any other Assassin's Creed game, you could. And it would take you 6 hours from start to finish to complete the Assassin's Creed Origins game. You would take that long to complete the story. Okay? It would take you about 6 hours if you're really good. If you're just starting out, maybe about 8-10 hours. Okay? You could finish Assassin's Creed 2 without doing all the extras and everything. You could finish that in about 8 to 12 hours. So, you know, very similar. Now, you don't have to actually go and do all the other things and whatnot. You don't have to go and you know, do every single side quest and whatnot. You know, like I played this file and I didn't do all the side quests. I opened up a lot of the map. Some parts of the map I haven't even opened up. And, you know, like once I open up those parts of the map, I'll be able to get other quests. But, you know, the map was huge. The world was beautiful. You know, like I know a lot of people are like, oh, you know, we had problems with, you know, like climbing and stuff like that. You could climb up every climbable surface in this game. And almost every surface is climbable. The only thing that's weird is, you know, you can't leap across rooftops and everything because it's a desert. You know, like, I mean, in this time, there weren't a lot of, you know, cities and stuff. So, you know, it could be underutilized here, but at the same time, it went with the time period. A lot of what went on here in this game dealt with the time period. And when we go back into the present day, when we're dealing with Layla Hassan, there is a lot of other things that go on. There is a lot of dialogue that happens as far as like what's going on in the present day. You know, and of course Layla gets in trouble and all kinds of hell breaks loose. And I honestly enjoyed seeing her as the present day protagonist. All right, there were, you know, like problems when we lost Desmond. We really didn't have a direction. It was either us playing like almost ourselves or something as the modern day protagonist, or we were a recruit, an assassin recruit or something like that. You know, there was just it was a mess. All right, so, you know, Layla kind of gives us that nice finish as far as, you know, like modern day protagonist. Now, Bayek, I enjoyed Bayek as the protagonist in the Assassin's Creed world. He's a lot of fun, you know, he's well-spoken, he's, you know, well-mannered until he has to, like, kill somebody. And it's just, it's a lot of fun. Like, the game itself was a lot of fun. You know, it gave us a lot more options as far as, you know, gear. You could, like, keep all your gear on you instead of having to report to a base. We had use of shields, which we've never seen before, okay? We did have use of, like, fire bombs, darts, things of that nature, bows, swords. You know, we could change our horse. We could decide what kind of horse we wanted, you know, and, of course, we had the hidden blade, you know, arrows and things like that. And everything kind of sort of makes sense for this time period. So it was enjoyable. You know, the ability points, we could become a beast. We could become just a destroyer of worlds depending on how many ability points you collect and what you do, and there is no end to collecting the ability points. You can just complete the game like 15 million times. You could, you know, take all the drachma that you win or farm drachma and buy experience tablets in order to just get yourself as many ability points as possible. Okay, there were other things that you could do as far as like inventory. You could go solve these puzzles, kind of like treasure maps, and obtain more stuff from that. You know, there were the Phalakite that you hunted down and you killed them and they gave you all this neat gear and stuff like that. The DLCs were enormous. They were a lot of fun to play. You know, the only thing with this game is that there were a lot of questions that they, you know, I had, and they didn't wrap it up. And, you know, that's why I thought Odyssey was going to be a sequel to this game, much in the way that Ezio had sequels, but of course that wasn't meant to be. Now, Odyssey just confuses me because it's gone completely off the rails. It's a completely different game than what we were expecting. It's not, you know, it's a full-on RPG basically. And, you know, it has action elements in it. So it's kind of like the reverse Origins. Instead of having a action game that had RPG elements, Odyssey is now an RPG game that has action elements, which is, you know, kind of wild. It's kind of weird. And in my opinion, honestly, I would have liked to see Odyssey become its own IP. Like, it really shouldn't have been, you know, like in the Assassin's Creed line. Not to say that I'm not going to play it, you know, but by no means am I not going to play it. I'm definitely playing it. But I feel like it should have been like a more advanced Chronicles style game. Because the way I feel is that it should have been just a game that actually chronicles what's going on with Cassandra and what's going on with Alexios. I feel that like everything in there should have been canon to that world. You know, there were so many other Assassin's Creed games that made, you know, changes, and the changes were for the better, or they were fun, or they were just associated with that one game. Like one of the games that I'm trying to think of. Oh, Liberation. Liberation actually had a lot of really cool things that you could do in it. You know, and a lot of it dealt with the wardrobe that the protagonist had. Her wardrobe decided what kind of assassin technique you could use. She could be, you know, like just the fair lady and use like a hidden attack where, you know, she'd use her umbrella as like a dart gun. She could, you know, actually be like the full-blown assassin and do assassin things. And then she could be like a slave, disguise herself as a slave and go out there and do things amongst the slaves. Or people would pay no mind to her because they believed she was a slave. It was a lot of interesting things that happened in that game. You know, obviously it's canon to certain stories because she actually did meet Connor in some of the missions. And, you know, it was just an interesting take. But there was no present-day protagonist, so it was just a story. Okay, the only thing that makes it canon is that she met Connor. Odyssey has a lot of odd problems. Odyssey, you know, people don't like the RPG element. People aren't really happy with, you know, the fact that you got two protagonists and one doesn't matter, the other one does. Things that you do may or may not be canon, depending on the actual story and the order of events. It's just, there's a lot of weird stuff going on with Odyssey. And people just, you know, like a lot of people are not happy. But we're going to have to see what goes on in Odyssey before we can make a final determination. Will it be a franchise killer, or will it be, you know, like the second game that saved the franchise? Origins, a lot of people consider to have saved the franchise, not just because it came out you know, not as a yearly release, but because it really brought a lot to the table. All right, like I say, there are a ton of similarities, there are a ton of differences. Bayek is still an assassin. You know, the robes he wears initially look like that's where the idea for, you know, the robes in Masyaf came from. You know, you still have the hidden blade, you still have your sword, you still have all these cool weapons and gadgets and everything. You still have to go and attack guards and perform missions and everything. You still have a list, and you have to kill everybody on the list. Okay? Yeah, historically there were no such thing as assassins back then, but you know, it would make no sense to call it like Killer's Creed or something like that. It's Assassin's Creed, and it has to do with assassins. And like I said before, some of the characters that you see in Assassin's Creed 2 that are in the basement at Montenegrone, that are statues there, they may not actually have been a part of the Brotherhood, but they could be spiritual ancestors to what the Creed became and what it stood for. And, you know, that's just actually kind of cool. So now, you know, as far as Odyssey goes, I mean, there's nothing there that looks like an assassin. You're a soldier. I mean, yeah, you could get a hood and put that on and stuff like that, but it would make no sense that they put on the hood, because why? Why would they put on a hood? Why would they come out with an idea, let me wrap this around my head? Maybe because they do like a night mission or something, I don't know. But, you know, there's just a lot of giant changes going on in Odyssey. And I'm actually kind of like surprised that people believe, especially those that, you know, have no interest in Odyssey. It's kind of interesting that they believe all these problems began in Origins. You know, when Origins, like I said, I feel Origins is a really great Assassin's Creed game. And it really did revitalize and save the franchise. But we'll see what Ubisoft is going to do now. You know, the ball's in their court, and they could either go back to yearly releases and give us junk, or, you know, they might give us something great and we didn't even realize it. You know, we'll see what happens. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. And, you know, just let me know in the comments below. What do you think of Assassin's Creed Origins? What do you think of Assassin's Creed Odyssey? Do you think that Odyssey should have been its own IP, kind of like Chronicles was? Do you think that any of the Assassin's Creed games do not fit in with Assassin's Creed and the original game, other than Origins and Odyssey? And do you still have problems with Origins? Is there still stuff about Origins that just irks you? That you know, what is your list? What do you not like to see in that? And what would you have loved to see in that? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, that's all the time I have. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed this video. And as always, thank you for watching.